Hey everybody, my name is Sean Keane. I'm with the Lighthouse for the Blind Assistive Technology Department, and today we are here for Ask the Blind Guys. And here with me
Yes,
is him.
it's him,
Is him.
the blind guy, right?
The blind guy, yeah, him.
Right. There is one other blind guy that's you. Hence the plural, right?
Right.
Well, welcome everybody. Glad you guys decided to pop in and join us today.
Yeah, so just a little intro. This is a group, a class, a tutorial, a hangout, whatever you want to call it, just a place to come and ask any burning questions you've ever had about blindness, blind people, either family members, friends, teachers, relatives, enemies, whoever. It's, just a place to free, open forum to
And
ask your question.
an open exchange of ideas, if you will.
Right.
So what we've done is we've taken some of your questions. I think we have an email address, which some of you are already familiar with. Now that's Ask the Blind Guys, right, Sean? At lighthousefw.org.
Right.
Subscribe
And
now.
yes, thank you. Well, Sean, was that you? Or that's amazing.
That
how
wasn't
you
me.
voice. Could I hear that again?
Subscribe now.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. Yes, so subscribe now, exactly. Typically, these meetings are going to be at the end of the month, right, Sean?
Right. It'll be the last Wednesday of the month at 4. And so you have a whole month to spread the word, tell your friends, family, coworkers, teachers, anybody. And I'm probably going to add this to my signature on my email, maybe post it on Facebook and such. Just occasionally, if you have questions you like to send to us, you can even send them anonymously. Of course, this cast will be on YouTube shortly after we're done. So that'll be another place people can hear about this and hopefully send us some questions.
Yes, questions are welcomed, most certainly. So, and I think we already have some questions today that we're going to go over here shortly, if there's nothing else.
Hey guys, we already have
yes.
hands raised.
All right.
Wow. Okay. Well,
Bob's on top of it today.
right on.
Go ahead, Bob.
Go ahead, Bob.
And that's guys in the California sense of the word, not just males, right? Includes everybody.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
I like it. We are all inclusive.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody. Yeah. Right. Of course.
Everyone.
Everyone's a guy in that sense. Yes. Good point, Bob. We could call it Ask the Blind Persons.
Ask the blind
individuals.
humans.
That's no fun.
It's kind of a little bit of a mouthful, isn't it? No. All right. Any other questions?
We're good to go.
All right. So I think we have the email address. We've got some questions there. But again, like Sean's saying, this is going to be kind of an open forum here for you guys. Granted, I think a lot of questions are going to come through the emails, but even now, you may have some questions. And the way I look at it is, we're talking about, just general topics, right? Life as somebody who's blind or visually impaired. There's always questions, or there's always maybe some concerns or some challenges. And I think, Rebecca, don't we have some emails already?
We do. I think we've just received like 2 or 3 so far.
Okay.
Yeah, I have one pulled up right now if you want me to read this. Okay, so I won't name who posted this, but the comment question is I struggle with self advocacy and starting conversations. I am too nervous to bring up a topic of concern or interest, and I'm afraid of being interrupted. Any tips on that?
Hmm. Well, I guess I'll share some of my experiences, and Sean, if you can share some as well. I know that years ago when I started losing my sight, that was the thing that I struggled with a lot because, it's
Wait,
a lot
you
of,
said some years ago?
yeah, yeah, several years ago, Sean. Wow. That takes me back like a long time ago. Well, it's amazing. Sean, he has harps in his home.
Yeah, yeah. Bells, harps,
Not only
crowds
can
of people.
not only
Yep.
can he change his voice, he's also a talented musician, and we just never knew. Could I hear that again, Sean? Yeah, that takes me back.
Sets the tone.
Right. But as I was as I was saying, when I was losing my sight, I realized that a lot of communication it's non-visual, right? A lot of folks in the beginning, what they do is they make eye contact with each other, and that's kind of how a lot of communication begins. It's looking at the other person, and then to get their attention. And I think a lot of that is just things that we're not even conscious of doing when we could see. When I started losing my sight, it was difficult for me to get someone's attention, or better yet, thinking that I had their attention and not realizing that they weren't there, and then begin speaking, right? And then there's nobody there when when you start hearing you start speaking to them. I think there's a particular sound effect, right, Sean, that'll go along with that.
Oh.
I was thinking more like crickets, but
Well, and so that happens, of course. You can be out somewhere and you're walking by someone and they go hello, and you're like, hey, and they might say, how's it going? Pretty good. And then you hear them say, hang on, this guy thinks I'm talking to him on the phone.
Right. Yes. That's happened to me, where it's like somebody will walk by like, hey, how was your weekend? Oh, it was great. Yeah, I went down to the beach, and then you hear clearing of the throat, and you're like, oh wait, no, they weren't talking to me. But we've all been there, that's part of I think a lot of folks who can see probably have moments like that as well, but it's especially true sometimes of us. I'll tell you how I've approached it over the years is getting someone's attention. Sometimes people, when they first meet you, they may want to shake your hand, and they may reach their hand out, and you can't see their hand. So it might be a good practice, first of all, to extend your hand. Granted, this is more appropriate in times that are not such as these, but yeah, just extending your hand first, making that that first step forward to get their attention, and then going from there. So, Sean, what about you?
Yeah, I was thinking because like growing up, I was really shy. I know people probably don't believe that, but and one thing I found is one thing I used to be petrified of was public speaking, or speaking of in any group setting, anything like that. And everybody always told me the way you get better is just to do it. And I thought, well, God, it's impossible because I can't. And when I got into this field, it kind of forced me to get in out of that comfort zone, out of that spot. And so now, I mean, especially all the Zooms we've done and all the presentations me and Kevin and all have done over the years. I mean, but back in the day, I would probably have stayed up all night panicking over that, and now I don't even think about it. So it takes doing, it takes practice, it takes time. It's kind of growing up, getting older, that kind of thing as well.
Although Sean did lose a lot of sleep in preparation for today's presentation, right, Sean?
I did.
He burned the midnight oil. Ironically, when I was cited, I was petrified of public speaking. When I would get up to talk, it naturally, you feel every eye in the room on you, and you think everyone is looking at me, and well, they are, but you really get psyched out by it. You get real subconscious, and you start getting a little clammy and getting a little nervous. And what I realized when I started losing my sight, especially now, is when I speak publicly, I kind of forget that there are other people, there. It kind of allows me to speak more freely without being self-conscious. Now, sometimes that's a double-edged sword, because, sometimes being able to see people's body language can help, because, you don't know if they're looking down at their watch or if they're, if they're a little distracted. So, but overall, I think it's kind of helped my public speaking in that way. Also,
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, something I've noticed over the years is if you're talking to a group and if you can keep them engaged, if they're laughing or, commenting or questioning, that just kind of helps that,
or groaning.
If you're groaning, if you hear this, not so good. But anyway.
Yeah, most definitely. Also, when it comes to conversations with folks, what I've done over the years is I try to disarm people a little bit. Anybody that knows me, I try to keep a sense of humor about myself. Sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. But regardless, I find if you can make that other person feel comfortable around you, by just trying to find some levity in the situation, that can make people feel a little bit more comfortable. Because let's be honest, a lot of folks out there in the public don't interact with folks who are blind as often as they would other people, and so when they encounter somebody who is blind, it's not uncommon for them to kind of freeze up a little bit, to get nervous, because a lot of times people are self-conscious. They're just as anxious as you are, and because they don't want to say the wrong thing, right? They don't want to do the wrong thing, or put their foot in their mouth. So I'm Sean. You found that to be true sometimes? And Sean.
Oh, sorry.
Are you okay?
I was muted. Yeah, jokes, just keeping people engaged. It just really helps. Oh, let's see here. I think we got some more questions I'm trying to get to. Do you have any questions, Rebecca?
No, not on here. Mindy suggested we need a female co-host who's blind. Step up, Mindy.
Yep. We can unmute you. Hey, here's a good one, Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one we've discussed many a times. What are your biggest pet peeves when it comes to being blind? ? This could be for being around other people via or sighted, Gosh, I think we have this in our questions are what to do when you meet a blind person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes for me, it can change from day to day. It's just, for some people, it just, depends on what side of the bed you woke up on. Sometimes there are things that annoy you, and then sometimes they don't. But typically, a lot of times, it's their interactions with people. I guess for me, I would have to say it's being ignored and kind of disregarded by somebody who's there to interact with me, but I have somebody else with me and they're trying to speak to that person instead of me, right?
Like in a restaurant.
Like a restaurant, that's happened. I'll give you a recent one. For me, I was in a doctor's office and the nurse was there to speak to me, but I had my wife and they were speaking to her about me as if I was kind of a statue in the room. So I found that a little challenging. So I had to redirect, like as you said, Sean, earlier, I had engage that person to get their attention and bring their focus back to me.
Yeah, that happened to me. Surprisingly enough, at a doctor's office as well. It was the nurse was talking to, asking my wife, asking Mindy questions about me. And then she actually asked, because I told her I had prosthetic eyes, and she asked me if I could see out of them. And I said, no. So that was funny.
But in a way, that's kind of
too.
That's kind of a compliment, though, Sean. Think about it. Your eyes look so genuine that they convinced her that you could see, even though you can't.
I was thinking more along the lines of, you're in medical school and you're asking me. No. I can tell you one of my pet peeves is the one in the restaurant. What does he want? Or that just irks me. And sometimes it depends on the mood I'm in. Sometimes all of these depend on the mood that you're in. Because we're all human. And
Yep.
Sometimes you're just in a hurry and you don't have time to mess with people. Or answer their questions.
Yeah. It used to be before the advent of Uber and Lyft and rideshare that one of my biggest challenges, what I'd get really frustrated was transportation.
Mm-hmm.
I used to call it my blind road rage because, I didn't have the ability to be spontaneous as I had once before, perhaps, where, if I wanted to go somewhere, I had to plan it out in advance, be it scheduling with paratransit or with a friend. And that really made me feel like, gosh, I'm always seemingly at someone else's, mercy or at their schedule. But thankfully, a lot of things that used to aggravate me have changed. Don't as much because, of a lot of the progress that's been made with like rideshare apps and such.
Yeah.
We have a hand up.
Okay.
Oh, we have two hands up. Bob, go ahead. Oh, I think I hit unmute on you, Bob. You might have to unmute on your.
Did you call me?
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Okay. I used to take cabs frequently for doctor's appointments before Uber and Lyft. And I really got annoyed when I got a cab driver who couldn't speak English. It's the only language I know. So we didn't have a common language. And it's like, hey, you've got a job that requires you to deal with the public and you can't speak English? Seriously? And one of them was creative enough. He called a friend on his phone
Mhm.
and to translate. We'd pass the phone back and forth to each other with this guy on the other end of the phone interpreting.
Right.
So he made it work.
You know, and what I realized with those situations, Bob, is people that you're describing that they're not able to speak the same language as well. They rely on body language, but then again, that's lost on somebody who's blind because you can't see what they're gesturing at, or
Yes.
or if they're nodding their head. Right? Yeah, I can understand that being challenging.
Thanks, Bob. Anthony, go ahead.
Yeah, I just got a reminder a little while ago because I got an email because I got an upcoming doctor appointment on Friday, and I believe it's probably going to go through Zoom or whatever. But when I go see this doctor, they hand me paperwork for me to fill out.
Oh.
And I explained to him, I can't see to fill out. And it was funny because I was there with nobody there, right? And then 3 people came in behind me, and the same thing, they handed the paperwork. And they got in to see the doctor before me because they were able to fill in the paperwork and hand the paperwork in. And I'm sitting there trying to struggle and look what I'm doing. And it got me so aggravated. I handed it's like, here's my paperwork. I hope you can read it because I can't see what I'm writing. So, and then the next time when I had to do, when I started doing the phone, the conferencing, telemedic, whatever you want to call it, I had to tell them, it's like, well, I can't see the email that you sent me. You need to have somebody call me and fill over the stuff over the phone, or could have the nurse fill it out for me.
That's
Make it a lot easier.
yeah.
And they know you're blind, but they hand you the paperwork anyway.
Yeah, and that's something you can do it's called a reasonable accommodation. Even if, maybe you show up to the appointment 10 or 15 minutes earlier than you normally would, and just explain either on the phone or that, hey, I can't fill this out by myself, and there's nobody available to come with me. And
especially now, you can't bring anybody inside into the doctor's office because they want them to stay outside.
right.
I know other people have had those doctors' offices mail them the paperwork in advance of the appointment. So that way they can fill it out at home, a week or 2 in advance of the appointment, and then take it in with them. That's one workaround, but I've had it happen to me where I've gone into a doctor's office and by myself, and I've had a similar experience. Suffice it to say, it can be frustrating.
Yeah, so every time I go see the doctor, I had to fill out this questionnaire. It's like, I filled this the last time. Well, every time you come, you got to fill out the same
Right.
questionnaire. That's like, oh, okay. Well, I guess this is, you should have told me that sooner. I would have had somebody come with me.
And it
I
could
hear
be
you, Anthony.
just something to keep in mind for any future doctors to, maybe it's a question you ask when you set the appointment. Is there going to be paper to fill out? Here's the situation,
Yeah. And the fact is, all of us, Sean and I, and you guys listening, we're all in the position, whether we want to be or not, as educators of the public, because a lot of folks out there don't know really how to interact with somebody who's visually impaired or blind at first. And, it's incumbent upon us to educate them, while we are kind of flying by the seat of our pants sometimes. And we have moments where, I'm sure some of you listening, you get frustrated, and maybe you get a little snappy, you get a little abrasive, and I understand that. That's just human, right?
And, sometimes you may get asked a question, it's a good example of times people just come up to you thinking, you're the spokesman for the blind, and you might be having dinner with your family, or you might be, just having a nice night out, and it's just not appropriate for them to, I'm sorry, I I appreciate your questions, but I'm trying to hang out with my wife, or I'm trying to hang out with my friends, or something along
Sean's
those.
like, hey, I'm off the clock here, okay?
Hey, but other times it is appropriate if
Yeah.
you're just
What I love, and when I say love, I'm being a little sarcastic, is when people assume that I know other blind people, that I know all the other blind people in the world. I'll give you a quick story. Sean, where's that chime at?
Oh, I didn't have me
Oh,
right.
well, never mind. Yeah, gosh,
Nope.
come on, Sean. I'm setting you up here. Years ago, I was traveling. I was on a Greyhound bus, and I had a connection in Tyler, Texas, to another bus, and so I got to Tyler, and I was there in the bus stop waiting for my connecting bus, and I started to make some small talk with somebody who worked there, and this guy, he said, yeah, there's this blind guy that he comes up and down the road every day. He's got a guide dog, and he seems real nice. And do you know him? I'm like, I don't even live here. I wouldn't know him if I met him, but and I was just passing through. But it cracked me up how he thought that I knew this guy, because we all know each other. So, but
Yeah, I was at TCC College back in this probably 15 years ago. I still remember this story though, because I was walking to class and this lady stopped me and she goes, "Hey, I saw you last weekend down in down in the Stockyards." No, that wasn't me. Yeah, you had that dog, and I remember you. We talked at. No, I hadn't been to the Stockyards in probably 10 years. And she just went on and on and on. I finally said, yeah, all blind people look alike.
Sometimes that's just an example of how humor can diffuse a situation, or put emphasis on a point. In fact, Sean and I we've been interchanged
all the time on
the
here
years.
at the lighthouse, and
right. So but again, it's about how you take it in stride. And I would imagine a lot of you out there newly visually impaired, it's probably going to be aggravating for you at first, more so than for someone like Sean and I who've been doing this for a while. Because really after a while, I don't know about you, Sean, but it just doesn't really bother you as much. At least that's how I feel. When I started losing my sight back in my 20s, I was a raw nerve. I had a chip on my shoulder about it, and anyone that treated me differently, boy, I was going to give them a look, or I was going to be, snarky or fast forwarding, a couple of years, maybe more from then. It's just a lot of it. Just you take it in stride. But
all right.
any other questions, Sean?
Yeah, let's see. Do we have any hands up? Nope. Okay.
Sorry, I thought I was unmuted. No, we do not.
Okay, here's the next question. What do you think is something totally weird that sighted people do?
Totally weird.
Weird. I guess, this hadn't happened in a while. It has happened before when you're waiting to cross a light and somebody's coming along and they just grab you and propel you across the streets. And that happens because, I guess they know where you're going or something, but that's happened. You'll be standing at a light waiting to cross, and then somebody, hey, come on, let's go. And they just grab you, and that's disconcerting. Anytime anybody grabs you, you don't know if they got evil intentions in mind or, what's going on.
Right. I got to say go ahead, Sean.
I was just going to say, I've had people ask me if I knew sign language, just because I was blind. That was kind of weird. But
you don't know sign language, Sean?
No, I don't. Do you?
I'm learning it right now. It's but it's the Braille version.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah. When I get that figured out, I'll let you know how that works. But not really. What I find kind of funny is this phenomenon with people who are sighted is sometimes I've noticed that they'll try to whisper to me.
Whisper.
Yeah, like I'll see if I can think of an example where somebody will come up to me and they'll be talking to somebody about me, and they'll get really quiet like this.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know what the.
Yeah, you can't hear them. No.
No.
Because they got to talk really loud for you to hear them, because if you're blind,
Right.
you obviously can't hear them. They got to talk louder. So
Right.
they talk quiet.
Yeah. Of course, the event, I start whispering too. I'm like, what are we whispering about? I'll tell you a quick story. When I was in college, one year I was taking a math class, and there was this building that I was in. I was coming out of it when I came down the elevator, and I exited out of the elevator. And what did I walk into? But I walked into a group of elementary kids, and they were there touring the university. And obviously, they had their teacher with them. And when I walked out, I could hear the kids all, they're being kids, and they're talking, and they're roughhousing and whatever. And then I heard, and I can only assume this was a teacher. I heard a shh, like they all saw me, and the teacher hushed them, and everyone got real quiet. And it made me laugh because I was thinking, if all these kids in this crowded room get quiet, it's likely that I'm going to probably bump into them because I don't know they're there because they're not making a noise. But the teacher thought it was a good idea to make sure everyone be very quiet. We don't want to scare him.
That could be one of the biggest educational moments ever.
Yeah.
Too,
Right.
I mean, kids are great. They ask all the hard questions that adults won't ask.
They do. Yes, they do. Let's see. I think.
We have a hand up.
Okay.
Go ahead, Bob.
Weird things that sighted people do.
All right. That'll be good.
Every now and then I'm walking along and somebody will say, turn left. It's as if he's assuming he knows where I'm going. And this is, usually it's to my home. My home is to the left. Your home is that way. And this has happened to me enough that I've got the right comeback. Are you telling me to go home? I'm going somewhere else, and I know where I'm going.
See, there's that humor. That's good. That's funny. With my story there, what I never could understand is why the kids and everybody would stand still. They wouldn't get in my way. They would just stand still like a statue, and then I would walk into them. It's kind of counterproductive, but.
Okay, here. I've read this question a couple times, and I really can't think of an answer. I bet Mindy could, but what is something that you wish someone had taught you that you had to learn the hard way?
Boy,
that's hard.
That's an open-ended question right there. That could be about just about anything.
What?
Well,
I'll let you tackle that, Kevin.
You let me
I'll be thinking about it.
You're so kind, Sean. I was gonna pitch it to Rebecca, but
Sorry, guys, I'm unqualified for this one.
You're unqualified. We've all been there. Come on.
We can pitch this. We can pitch it to Bob.
Yeah.
Bob's the answering machine over here. Well,
actually, I have one, and This comes from me being a geek and spending too much time in the early 70s listening to feminist shows on late night radio. I wasn't listening to them on purpose, but I built a radio and was trying it out. And then after a while, I got tired of messing with it and just started tuning around and listening to things. And I really wish someone had taught me that men and women are different, that my girlfriend doesn't want to wrestle. Because they were saying men and women are identical except for a few details of plumbing. So I hadn't yet learned that when someone's saying something loud and long and nobody's arguing with them, it's probably nonsense. So I had to learn the hard way that men and women are different. I'm still more comfortable with machines than with people.
Okay.
Now I'm embarrassed myself, and it's somebody else.
Who else wants to embarrass themselves? Well, we can start with Rebecca. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Of course.
Well, I'll tell you what. Lessons learned. For me over the years, when I'm looking back, I think if I had a time machine, if I had a DeLorean from Back to the Future, I would go back 20 years from now, and talk to myself. Yes, thank you, Sean. Good. See, that was the appropriate use of that sound effect. It's good. I would go back 20 years ago and talk to my younger self and tell me to pull my head out of the ground. I was really bad procrastinator when I was young, and I didn't have a lot of structure really. I grew up in a very small town, in a small fishing village off the coast of Ireland. No, I'm kidding. No, but I grew up in a small town up in Missouri, and it was very, very small and not a lot of structure really, and I didn't have a lot of goals. And I ironically, losing my sight, beginning to lose my sight, made me more goal oriented, because I thought, well, what am I going to do in this town of less than 2,000 people? And I'm surrounded by, nothing but corn stalks. There's not really a whole lot of, of things to aspire to in a place such as that. But I always look back and I think, I wish I had, gotten on the track for my rehabilitation earlier, because I have what's called retinitis pigmentosa. Some of you out there may have it or know what that is, I'm sure. I started losing my sight when I was in my later teens, but I was not really in a position to want to acknowledge that, because I had enough sight to get by pretty well. So I had people telling me that maybe, hey, you should take this a little bit more seriously, or maybe you should be more proactive about it. But I chose to ignore and float down the river of denial. And so I guess if I had to do it again, I would start, embracing that earlier on, becoming more educated about blindness and about the resources available.
Yeah, I think I could probably say something similar to that. I wish when I was younger, like 18, 19, 20, I moved out when I was 18. I moved to Austin for about 4 or 5 years. And, I went through the Chris Cole Rehab Center, and I've had some experiences over the years with DARS, Division of Blind Services, and all that. And I wish I had taken more advantage of, things like IL skills, like cleaning and cooking, and just, things that I learned now that I wish I'd spent more time, like I wish I'd been better. I could have been better at it now, or, continue to grow at it better.
So what you're saying, Sean, is that Mindy is teaching you these things now.
I hear her laughing downstairs.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
I don't have a sound effect for that, but it would be something like bingo.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was an open door. I had to walk through it. Yeah. That's a good question. Good question.
Good question. I think that's it from that email. If Rebecca got some, possibly, or if you did, Kevin, or remember getting some, or if we have any from the floor.
Yes. How about let's go to the floor and see any comments about anything we've discussed, or just what are your thoughts? It's just a free flow of ideas here, so don't worry about trying to be formal. Anyone?
Dina has her hand up. Go ahead, Dina.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, going back to the topic of, people not knowing how to interact with a person with a vision impairment. I've been working in my job at the Talking Book program for 20 years now, but before I got that job, I would say that I didn't really understand about levels of blindness or levels of vision impairment. I kind of thought that if somebody couldn't see, they were blind. I didn't really think about blindness versus low vision versus, some people having peripheral vision or central vision, all that kind of stuff. So I think that a lot of people with disabilities, they kind of have to educate the people that they come into contact with. And I have a physical disability. And when I was growing up, I would kind of get teased and stuff. And my mother's advice was, well, just snarl at them, just growl. I mean, just look mean to them. And now that I'm an adult, I'm like, I don't really think that that's the way to handle it. Don't, because people are really just usually curious, and especially kids. And sometimes their curiosity doesn't always come across the right way, but they're really just, they're curious, but they may not always know how to ask the right questions and stuff like that. So I kind of think that people with disabilities, we do have to be educators sometimes. And I think that the way that we approach a situation can make a big difference in how people are affected by it. Like if somebody comes up and has a question, answering it and educating them, and then they have that positive experience and they also get their question answered versus, I don't want to talk about it, or you're being rude, or, but I mean, people have their good days and bad days, and I'm not saying we always have to be angels or anything, but I think that the way that we approach those situations, it can be beneficial, if any of that makes sense.
It does. It really does. Yeah. My favorite kid question is, well, why don't you wear glasses?
Yeah.
Gee, I never thought of that.
I love that question. Yeah. Yes, it's so sincere. Yeah.
I have a question.
Okay.
What's the most awkward gift you've ever received?
Well, one time I received from a family member a flashlight, because to help me see in the dark. So, yeah. Did you two coordinate that?
We didn't, but that was perfect.
Oh my goodness, yeah. No, it was well intentioned, but maybe not entirely helpful. But yes.
So I do have a question that, like, when I'm speaking to people about the lighthouse and everything, something they always ask me, and I know I've asked Sean this before and I was surprised by his answer. So I just want to ask, I guess, everybody. One of the first things that people ask me when I talk about it, they go, well, aren't they always looking for a cure to get their vision back?
Okay, so I'll bite first on this, and my answer is no. Partly because I mean now, and I got prosthetic eyes now, so that'd be a challenge. But even when I was growing up, being blind and I've been blind pretty much since birth. Had a little bit of vision growing up, but nothing worth writing home about. So there's a lot of effort and a lot of work involved in being blind. Learning how to do the things, how to travel independently, computers, work, everything we do. And I'm 45 now, and if I got all my vision back tomorrow, I would have to relearn everything. I'd have to learn how to read, and it'd probably take the rest of my life just to learn how to be sighted.
That's a
So
very
that's
interesting point. Yeah. I think that question, it just depends on who you ask. What I've observed is if they don't know about the possibilities of rehabilitation for the blind offer, they may default to that feeling of, well, I'll be kind of a restored person once I get my sight back. But I find that if somebody like myself, for example, if you're learning the skills that you need to become an independent person, it helps you to incorporate the blindness into your life better, rather than waiting for some magical cure to come down the road. And keep in mind that might yet still happen at some point. But the question is, well, what are you going to do in the meanwhile? Are you going to wait? Are you going to sit at home and wait for that cure to happen? And what about your life in the interim?
Yeah. And
are you going to stop living life in hopes of one day receiving some kind of treatment? I think the way I look at it is you plan for the future, but you live in the present, right? So,
yeah, just how much time do you want to devote to, waiting around for, a mythical cure? It might be possible 100 years from now,
right?
But I don't think any of us will be around by then.
Right. But that's a great question.
Are you saying
that's all about
a great question?
No, I thought you asked that question.
It's recorded.
What about you guys out there? Any thoughts about that?
I got one here. If nobody else says anything. What about traveling blind? Going somewhere with your spouse or by yourself. I can definitely speak to this. Before, for 4 or 5 years before I worked at the Lighthouse, I was an independent trainer. So I worked for the state. I didn't work for myself. And I did both. I mean, I had a full-time driver, and we'd drive all over Texas, and then there'd be occasions where, I'd fly out to El Paso, or I'd fly out to McAllen one time. And I mean, that's a pretty big deal when you're blind. I mean, you're going somewhere completely new. Of course, I'd educate myself about the area, like where my hotel was and where I was going and that kind of thing. What was around there, but you fly somewhere and you get off and you get a taxi or an Uber, and it's a lot of. I'd say it's more advanced mobility skills.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking a lot of years of practice and putting them to use and learning a new place fairly quickly. And doesn't mean that you can't ask for help. You can, and I have many a times. But yeah, you get to a hotel and you got to learn where your room is and how to get to the front, how to get to maybe the ice machine or the restaurant or whatever you need for the time you're there.
Yeah. I oftentimes find myself going into people's homes, working with the Lighthouse now, in the way that I do. And I'm sure people are, wondered, well, how does he know? How does he get around in that person's house if he's never been in that house before, right? And, the way I approach that is, first of all, I go in with the understanding that the person that I'm helping lives in that home and knows that place much better than probably anyone else, because after all, it's their home. So I let them be my guide by following them into the home. And, usually they'll walk with me as they're talking, and I'll make small talk as well, and keep a conversation going. And I kind of follow their voice as they continue to talk to me, and using my cane too, by the way, as a necessity. So, I'll use my cane, and they'll walk in the living room and I'll find the couch, and they may say it's off to your left. And so eventually, we may walk around the house and I'll follow them. So that's one way, that's one strategy, that works for me, in places that are unfamiliar, right? Also, I have a gentleman that works with me. He's my driver, and when necessary, I may use his eyes to help me with navigating around. But I think you kind of develop your own rhythm. What do you think, Sean? I mean, I find once you kind of learn some of those O&M skills, you kind of just you develop your own kind of style and your own kind of rhythm with it.
Oh yeah, and everybody's different. Doesn't mean
Yeah.
that anyone's better than another. It's how you do things, and we all do things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
It's no one size fits all. And hey, if there's something you can't do, that's nothing bad either. I always say, not everybody can play in the NFL, and it's not to be mean or anything. It's just mean that everybody just has different levels, abilities, and all that. And some people may need extra help, and that's fine.
Yes. Yeah, but everyone has got different goals too. Not
Yep.
everybody, has the same set of goals or the same set of interest. It's individualized, right? And
Yeah.
it's about what makes you feel independent. So
There's people that get around way, way better than I do. And there's people that, I mean, I can cross streets. I guess I would say medium level streets.
Mhm.
I'm not the adventurous type anymore that goes out and tries to see what the largest street I can cross is. It's just, no, it's okay. But yeah, everybody's different.
How about some of you guys out there? What about when it comes to traveling? What are some observations that you've made? Maybe there's some things from your toolbox that you can share with the group about what's worked for you. Come on, I know some of you out there have some experiences. Don't make me call you by name, because I'll do it. Bob. Yeah, that's it, Bob. Bob, are you listening? How about Dr. Guerrero? Miss
Go
President?
ahead.
How about
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I finally found the unmute button. You tried to unmute me, but I think I was the last one to mute myself, so it just told me that you wanted me to unmute and I had to find the button. But when I was in college, my dormitory was on one side of a 4-lane, and the cafeteria and classroom buildings were on the other side, and administration buildings and all. So I crossed that 4-lane about 8 times a day during the week. And one time I sat down with my calculator and guesstimated that the chance that I would get hit by a car crossing that street is probably 1 in 10,000, just a wild guess. But then I extrapolated that out, computing the probability that crossing that street 8 times a day, 5 days a week, about 30 weeks out of a year for 4 years, what is my chance of getting hit sometime during that? And it turned out to be nearly a certainty, according to the math, and I got spooked. I kept on doing it, but I've never liked traveling since, and structured my life after that, so I didn't have to do much of it by myself.
That's a good point, because I've gotten hit by a car before.
Really?
A, it's no fun,
It didn't sound like fun.
and B, it will totally zap your confidence for a while. At least it did me. It took me like years to get back to where I was comfortable even crossing neighborhood streets.
Wow.
It didn't break any bones, but yeah.
All right. So there's a lot of things that we could discuss about traveling. It's kind of a general discussion there, but there are some other specifics too we could get into at a different time. Any other questions? Any hand raised?
Nope.
I think instead of hands, we need like thumbs, like thumbs, like thumbs up. Instead of a hand raised, a thumb raised, or not.
Okay, Kevin, let's just stick to what we're good at.
I haven't figured out what that is yet. So.
You're so silly. I'm back.
Oh, do you got questions for us?
I don't know what you've been talking about. I was listening to Hadley.
That's okay.
Sorry.
You anything.
Gosh, we can't compete with
You
Hadley.
you get the last word.
Oh. Well, air fryers are cool.
What's cool?
Air fryers.
Air
That's what
fryers.
That was the conversation.
Yeah,
And
Hadley's
dinner's
got some
almost
really
done.
Good stuff going on over there.
Uh-oh.
I think I hear an air fryer.
No, I'm on the stove today. I can only multitask 2 things, it turned out. Dinner and Hadley.
All right, guys. Well, if nothing else, what do you think, Sean? Think you want to wrap it up here?
Yeah, that'd be good.
All right. Well, guys, this has been a little bit of an experiment on our part. So we've rambled here for about an hour, and I hope you found we hope you found it helpful and encouraging. In the next one will be at the end of June, right, Sean?
Yeah, that'll be the last Wednesday of June, which somebody's gonna have to look that up.
So you're going to have from now until the end of June to email your questions. So next time we're going to have a lot more questions on in front of us to go over. So
You can email your questions to asktheblindguys with an S on the end at lighthousefw.org.